And that's where I feel that Conte believes his squad is not at the required level. It's when you look at the bench and the lack of options. Paraticic before the match was doing his customary pitch side, I'm on the phone. He was on it for ages, about 20, 25 minutes. You'd assume doing... I don't know. It's guesswork. I know everyone says, he's playing Candy Crush or he's ordering his pizza for later or whatever. You'd think it would be to do with stuff going forward because there'd be no real reason to talk to anyone connected with Tottenham on a match day when you're there with everyone that's important to the match day. So you'd imagine it's more discussions about stuff going forward, especially when you're on the phone for that long. Or it could have been just his mum. I don't know. It could have been just a family member. Could just be talking utter rubbish. But yeah, Paraticic, I think it's going to be such a busy summer. I was really kind of looking at it yesterday. I was looking at the potential players that can leave. I think that's the key. Because I think I was looking at it and up to 10 players could leave. And look, 10 players is unlikely. If I'm doing one of these videos at the end of transfer window, we're talking about 10 players having left the club. That's a huge overhaul. And it is unlikely. It's very unlikely. But when I looked at it, there is the possibility that can happen. I mean, I kind of wrote some of these down here. Because this is it. I was thinking about incomings. So I was looking at it and I was thinking about it is within the realms of possibility that Tottenham could be looking for a new goalkeeper, because we know, Galini's unlikely to stick around. New left-sided centre-back, which is what Conte wanted anyway. A wing-back potentially on either side, and I'll come to reasons why on that in a minute. A creative midfielder, we know they need that. Another winger at least, if Bergwijn and or Lucas go. And a striker, which we know Tottenham have needed for so long. Maybe you buy a winger/striker, that fills both those. Perhaps that's a way of doing it. But even that alone, the ones I've said, if you were to get one in each one, that's 7 new signings. I was trying to think, was the Mourinho Bale summer? I think that was 6. Was that 6 signings, I think? Potentially it could be more than that. And then, the reason I look at that, and it kind of, I know I often kind of say about people who kind of look at it as like it's playing FIFA or Football Manager and it's a bit unrealistic, but I think this summer we could actually maybe go that way because of how much needs to be done. And the reason I say about 6-7 signings is because of the amount of players that I think have to leave. And obviously there has to be interest in them. But, I was looking at it, obviously, Ondevale and Lo Celso have to be moved on. Whether it's selling them or whether it's loaning them again. Those are 2 players that are going to, you'd think, not be at Tottenham next season. Harry Winks, he'll want regular football. I'd be stunned if Harry Winks is at Tottenham next season because I think he needs to play regular football. And someone, who was it? I can't remember who it was. Someone made a really good suggestion that I know Winks, I don't know whether he'd see it as beneath him or something, but like Fulham coming up, Winks would be really good in their midfield. I'm not one for the Winks hate. I think Harry Winks, with rhythm, with a lot of matches under his belt, rather than coming in and out of a team, I think would be a very good Premier League player. I think he will. I'm not saying he'll be a top player, but I think he'll be a good Premier League player. So I'd be intrigued to see kind of what interest there is in him this summer and how that works. But I think Harry Winks will move on. So that's 3 midfielders alone. Joe Rodon. Joe Rodon has to be playing football next season. Personally, I think he's got 3 years left on the deal. I think that has to be a loan. I would personally make that a loan. I have no say whatsoever in that, but I would make it a loan because I think even from a football sense, it reignites him, it gets his confidence back, and you'll develop him. From a business point of view, I think Joe Rodon, in a year's time, having played a season elsewhere, is worth a lot more than he would if you tried to sell him this summer. That's my personal view. And the reason I said about the wing-backs, potentially one in each role, is because I wonder whether Tottenham cash in on maybe Emerson and Reguilon this summer. Emerson, I think unfortunately it's obvious. I think Emerson, if you're playing with a back 4, I don't think there's too much of an issue. I think he's a solid fullback, and I think he works within that if he's not having to get forward. Wing-back, if Conte is remaining at Tottenham Hotspur next season, Emerson can't be a wing-back for him. And I think if that's the case, you need to move him on. I know it's only a year, but I think he has to go. And he'll go perhaps back to La Liga, and I think there'll be interest in him. And I think he'll go back and be a very good right-back in La Liga, as he was for Real Betis on loan from Barca. Sergio Reguilon, I just wonder whether he can fully adapt to being a wing back or not. I know Real Madrid have got one more option this summer to buy him, but you're looking at 43 to 45 million for him. I don't think they'll pay that. So I wonder whether he ends up going back to Spain to another club, perhaps. Best case scenario for me, I'd love for him to make it. I like Reguilon. I think he's got the natural abilities to be a wing back, but just for some reason or another, it's not worked for him thus far. And I do feel that Conte prefers Sessegnon over him. And we'll get a good indication of that, I think, against Leicester, and whether he starts again or after what was a poor performance from Sessegnon. And if he starts again, I mean, yes, you could say it might be because of the groin injury and all that with Reguilon, if that's as bad as it's being made out. But yeah, so potentially that's another two players that could go on. So we know Galini probably going to go back to Atalanta. I can't see Spurs spending the 11 million or so on him. And then obviously it looks likely that perhaps Sam Johnson is going to come in and he'll replace that as a homegrown player. So that's another one. And then if you are also losing Lucas and/or Bergwijn, who I think you get money for both of those. We know Ajax will pay very good money for him. And Lucas, I think I've said this before, there was a big bid for him a few years back that Tottenham turned down a big bid. I think it was just after the Champions League final that summer. So I think if Lucas was made available for transfer, then I think someone would buy him. Look, Lucas can bring you stuff. I don't think it would be the worst thing in the world at all if he stayed. I'll always say that Lucas needs to up his assists and the chances he creates for others, and probably his goals as well in the Premier League. I think both assists and goals in the Premier League are nowhere near a player of his qualities standard where they should be. But I also think Bergwijn could be a very good player for Tottenham. But if Conte doesn't trust them and he wants them out in the summer, then it's the best thing for all parties. And then you've got Cameron Carter-Vickers, again, perhaps the forgotten man at Tottenham's defence. He's gone to Celtic and he's smashed it. Honestly, he's likely to go there. £6 million deal, rising to 10 if all other objectives are met. So that's another departure. So like I said, if all of those players just mentioned go, that's 10 departures, which is daft. It is daft. That's a huge overhaul of the squad, albeit 3 of them are on loan. You've got Brian Hill as well, who we'll have a little talk about later. But Brian Hill, obviously, we need to know what's happening with him next season. I'd probably imagine it will be another loan, but he'll get his pre-season to prove himself. I'd be surprised if Tottenham sold him straight on, unless it was just a huge bid came in. But I still think he's going to be a proper talent. But yeah, that could be a crazy summer. It could be an absolutely mad summer. If Conte wants to build a squad, maybe it's the right way to go about it. I don't know. Maybe Tottenham do need a big kind of overhaul. Maybe that is the way it needs to be, because